everyone, welcome to New Game Plus. I'm Tim, and I'm once again ditched by Kirsty, but
I'm joined. All of her.
I'm joined by Donald instead. How are you?
I'm doing fine indeed. I've been working on my Kirsty impersonation just in preparation for this. You want to hear?
Yeah, go for it.
Hi, my name is Kirsty. Welcome to New Game Plus. How's that?
It's good. Rated 8 out of 8.
Perfect.
Good. But we've got a big week of gaming coming up because
Of course, yeah.
TGS is coming up, and that's why everyone is over in Japan doing Japanese things.
Yes, visiting Akihabara, buying all the second-hand games from there, visiting all the arcades, getting all the prizes from the UFO catchers, and here we are, stuck in Melbourne, shaking our fists at the people in Japan doing awesome things.
But we're playing video games, so
At least we've got that.
Yes, it's all okay. And
It's our consolation prize.
Probably the biggest release over the last couple of weeks has been The Sims 4.
Yes, the fourth-person simulator, and indeed, it's the mark of the big gaming season of 2014 because it's been a bit of a drought, let's face it. But with The Sims 4, we suddenly have so many other games coming out in quick succession, so now's pretty much our chance to get in on our people simulating action.
Yeah, especially like October, November, all those big budget releases come out, but a lot has been delayed till next year as well, so I think it's going to be...
Evolve, but it always happens this way. Christmas too has been a thing for the past couple of years, but it still doesn't stop so many good games coming out around this time of the year. So much to look forward to.
Yeah, that is true. But also in this episode, we've got Jason visiting us from Japan, doing a movie segment. So yeah,
I believe the in-betweeners too gets a mention, so if you want to hear Jason's thoughts on that, stick around.
Yep, and we've also got Old Game Plus coming up. And our first review of the episode, Infamous Second Son First Light. Infamous Second Son was one of my Game of the Half years. I really did enjoy it, but now we've got a standalone DLC out called First Light, and you haven't played Second Son.
I have not played Second Son, so I'm coming to First Light pretty much as a complete blank slate, and it's been impressing me actually.
Yeah, it's certainly different from your normal Infamous fare, where Infamous has always been a game about good, bad morals, and you get different moves depending on which path you take. And in this game, you're playing as Fetch, who has the neon powers, which you may or may not have tried out in Second Son, and it's a bit different to what Delson gets in the main game. She has her own take on the powers, her own skill tree, and I think it flows a lot better.
Yes, and just bounding through the city, just free running along, just running around and trying to get all the collectibles was just fun. It was just in between the very few missions that you get in this standalone DLC pack. It was fun just to mill around town and just go through the races, to stop hostage situations, to just run from building to building and collecting skill points basically.
Yeah, I think that is what sets it apart as well, because it's not as fleshed out as the main game. There's less missions to do, there's less variety, you don't get the 4 different types of superpowers.
But it's a condensed game though, and they've managed to fit in quite a fair bit into the, say, 3 or 4 hours that you can get from this, and that's assuming you don't do all the side stuff.
Yeah.
But I kind of like the fact that there is no moral choice here, the fact that they just tell one story, and sure, it's a little too popcorny in some situations and some emotional beats, but there is one that lands particularly well. And it just, without the constraint of having to do multiple paths, it manages to still tell a rather concise story with an interesting character.
Yeah,
Fetch.
Fetch is definitely the most interesting character out of the Second Son game, because Delson was very annoying.
He was a hoodie, basically.
Yeah, he wasn't the best character, but I think this standalone DLC is good. It's probably more for people who have finished Second Son and want some more Infamous. The arena mode does add a few extra hours of gameplay if you're that competitive leaderboard type, but in the end, I think it's a good little package.
Now, this is the point of the show where we'd ask Timmy if he'd play a game. So, Timmy, would you play the game that you just reviewed?
Yes, I would play the game that I just reviewed.
Correct.
Would you play the game that you just reviewed?
Yes, I would also play the game that I just reviewed. Cameraman, would you play the game that we just reviewed?
Yes.
That's the spirit.
Yep.
But as I mentioned in the review itself, I haven't played an Infamous game before this one. So, would you say this is a good starting point for someone who's never played an Infamous game?
It is. It explains the backstory all right. And going back to the previous 2 Infamous games on the PS3, it's still the same formula and it plays very similar. You have Cole, McGrath, and you only have lightning powers. So that's probably the main difference between the games. But I think the the protagonists in all these games are weaker to what is in the standalone DLC.
And Fetch, as we mentioned, is a pretty strong protagonist. But also interesting to come out of First Light is the fact that this is a standalone DLC that you don't need the infamous game proper to be able to play it. And this is sort of a growing trend because we've had this with Dead Rising 2. We've had this with the clearly inferior Far Cry 3 Blood Dragon. I cannot say enough bad things about it.
And the fantastic Quest for Booty series, Ratchet and Clank.
That as well. How have you found this trend though? Would you want to? Is this something you want to see progressing along?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it fits with Ratchet and Clank, but it probably doesn't fit with this game. If you wanted to play Infamous, you would buy the full game first and then play the DLC. It's not a good starting point. Even though it is standalone, you can start there. It is certainly worth getting the full game because you'll get more out of the experience.
I'll get more hoodies, basically, is what you're saying.
Yes, very much so.
But having said, like, I think because this was such a small package, it's what kind of drew me into the game, because otherwise you had these long, elaborate things that I just don't really have the time for. And it is sort of an interesting experiment. It allows developers to sort of tell much more interesting side stories, ones that don't sort of have to sort of do the big you're the hero sort of thing. And it's sort of interesting in that regard.
Yeah.
Now, in the Game of the Half Year, I talked about a film which you have now seen.
Yes.
Snowpiercer.
Snowpiercer. Made by a Korean director.
Yep.
So straight away, one of the first things that's noticeable about it is the visual style, which I thought was particularly...
It looks nice.
It does, and it's very clean cut, lots of chops and changes without being too green grassy. The story itself, though,
Something you should always talk about first.
Yeah,
No matter how pretty the film looks, because if the film is crap and it looks pretty, you get sucker punch.
yes, basically.
So let's talk about the story.
So the story is there's a train that travels all around the European continent, basically, and when the end of the world occurs.
So it's like a nuclear winter.
Yeah, nuclear winter. Which very much like lends itself to that chemtrails conspiracy that's doing around at the moment. And they have lower class carriages, middle class carriages, upper class carriages. Everybody has a place and a place for everything.
Yep. Which plays a big role in the story.
Yeah, it's basically allegory, the movie. The whole thing is a giant allegory for the class warfare and the balance of human society.
So let's move away from the subtext and talk about the narrative. That is a very important part of it. But yeah, we follow a group of the lower class citizens as they try to fight their way up this train for equality.
Yes. With, again, being a Korean director, I don't think he did Old Boy. I think it was the other guy who did. Yeah, anyway, moral story.
Yeah, there's only two of them.
There's lots of axe murders. There's lots of
pretty violent
shooting and violence and nastiness, and it is very impactful. Like, a lot of what they do is there to make the point. I don't know. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was good. It misses the mark a couple of times for me.
I think it's a sort of sci-fi film where you're just waiting for not as the twist, but you're waiting for the reveals.
Yeah, and lo and behold,
because you know they're coming.
Yeah, and so it's still a very good movie. Still definitely worth a look. But then we switch tacks entirely.
Recently, I've seen The In-Betweeners 2.
Yes.
Which is the second film following the 2 TV series.
Now, full disclosure.
The English one.
Yes. God, not the American. Oh,
yes,
God.
exactly.
I have watched all the series of In-Betweeners. Very big fan, but I've never even seen the first movie, and I've heard that's very good as well.
That is an excellent film.
Yeah.
The movie follows on, they finish high school in the TV series, they go on their schoolies, hijinks ensure. This is 6 months later.
Yep.
They're now going to Australia.
Yes, of course. Australia, mate.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You should definitely watch a TV show first.
Yeah. I think that's the big thing, even when I was, the movies came out, was I've seen the series, and even then I feel that it would be pointless to watch them alone. Like, the characters themselves, while not necessarily all that unique, are very much, Yeah,
it's like there's like 4 kids that are basically assholes, and like not mean-spirited, but they are just assholes talking to each other and making fun of each other. The series is like that. You should definitely watch a TV show, watch the movies. The second one isn't as good, but still has some great laughs in it.
So welcome to Old Game Plus. We're doing another retro and remakes segment, and this week we're going to look at
Crazy Taxi.
Originally at the arcades on the Naomi hardware, and then followed shortly afterwards on the Dreamcast. With pretty much the Naomi hardware with less RAM.
Pretty much. And then Crazy Taxi 2 came out on Dreamcast as well. Crazy Taxi 3 came out on the Xbox. There was a Game Boy Advance version, a PSP version, which has Crazy Taxi 1 and 2, but without the licensed music, which is still pretty good.
And all the Crazy Taxi games were made really well. So the first one was based in San Francisco. The ones that followed were based on the worlds of
LA,
New York and LA.
Yeah. And they also had, which was unique, like product placement, but buildings. So you could drive people to the KFC, to the Pizza Hut, and it really worked. Nobody complained about it because it just made it feel right.
And they took that out in the later versions, didn't they?
Yes, and I'm surprised because it just was fun.
It just
I don't
made
know
sense.
why more games do it. They also had licensed music, and when that Offspring song starts at the start, it's one of the best moments in gaming. It really is.
Yeah.
And that's the original Crazy Taxi. And for some reason, I've been playing the new version, Crazy Taxi City Rush.
So how does it compare? Honestly.
Well, I regret every moment of playing it. So it basically shows it's a free iPad game. It shows what's kind of wrong with those sorts of games. Some of the in-app purchases are over $100. You can grind your way through, but it's one of those games that you can pay to not play it, basically, and that's really an area creeping into free games. I don't know. I'd rather have a more fair way.
And it doesn't sound like the grinding is rewarding. Like,
no, because the gameplay is horrible. Basically, you can't explore. You're stuck on the road. You move your finger left to right. Intuitive controls. You press the sides of the screens or slide to steer. You can't drive off.
Automatically
the road
accelerates too. So
yeah, you tap very quickly to brake. All the graphics are very nice. It looks like The Sims, so they've gone for a certain graphic style there. Some of the dialogue in the game's really sort of hipster and not very well written. There's a lot of upgrades. You can upgrade your car, but the upgrades can get very expensive. And for some reason, you've got coins and diamonds you have to upgrade. Hence the in-app purchases to try and make you buy more.
to earn crazy money.
Yeah, crazy money. And in fact, if you play Crazy Taxi, you are a crazy person.
Which brings us to the best version to play would still be the original.
Yes, that one.
So
play
if
that
you
one.
want to play Crazy Taxi, the best version with all the licensed music, the product placement, which is really good, really well placed in the game, I would say try and find a Dreamcast and try and find the original.
It's also fun.
All right, I'm here with Joel from 2K and James from Gearbox Software. We're here talking about Borderlands, the pre-sequel. Now, what can people expect from this game?
Well, Borderlands, the pre-sequel, if you kind of take that name into account, it's set in between Borderlands 1 and Borderlands 2. And for the story, we're really focusing on the rise of Handsome Jack. In Borderlands 2, fans will remember that he's kind of this maniac, this mass murderer. He just doesn't give a damn about anyone else. But at the beginning of this game, he's just he's this programmer, he's his middle manager working for Hyperion. He's trying to get that Helios space station up and running. He's trying to do right by the company, and he actually gets kicked off the space station by an invading force, and they try to destroy the moon, and he's actually trying to save the moon and save the people of the moon, which doesn't sound right for Jack, does it?
No.
And we're actually going to tell the story of the events that caused him to become this maniac that he is in Borderlands 2. You know, there are some pretty serious events that happen in his life to start, making him snap to become a psychopath. And it is a serious story. There's serious events that happen in his life, but we're able to kind of wrap it in this humor that everyone's familiar with from Borderlands.
Now, bringing over a lot of, what makes Borderlands Borderlands, what makes this different from the other Borderlands, James?
Well, I mean, we're obviously adding 4 new playable characters, right? Like, we've got Wilhelm, who was the first big boss from Borderlands 2. We've got Athena, who was sort of like the ultimate assassin in Borderlands 1. We've got Claptrap as a playable character, and Nisha as well. We've added a new element type, which is the cryo damage, which is ice elemental that you can freeze enemies with. And if you deal enough damage to them beforehand, you can actually shatter them, which is awesome. We also have this low grav system because Elpis, which is the Pandora moon that you're primarily on, is very similar to Earth's moon. Very thin atmosphere, very low gravity, and so we get to play around with a much more like 3-dimensional play space because of the low gravity. In the past, you or enemies could be pretty safe behind cover, but now you can jump right over it and invalidate their cover completely. So if they're on a run, you can keep hunting them. It is really satisfying to just jump right above them and then just blast a rock into like a group of scabs and just see them go flying. Because since there's very low gravity, when they die, they will keep flying forever.
They'll just start spinning out.
And if they're in like a semi-enclosed space, they'll bounce around like a pinball and just ricochet. It's so dark and satisfying.
Now, one last quick question. If you have to pick one thing from the game, maybe something you had an influence on, what is your favorite bit?
I guess it's always been my dream to somehow get cricket into a video game. I mean, there's amazing gameplay, there's everything, you know, that's great about this game, but I've always dreamed about getting cricket into a video game. Unfortunately, 2K doesn't listen to me when I say we should make an actual cricket video game. So having some small part in getting that into a AAA, you know, big, massive franchise like this, I feel pretty proud of that.
You know, I'm just really glad that we've been able to kind of embark on this together. It's a really kind of like emotionally challenging situation when you've been on something like Borderlands for several years, like I have, and then you go, we're gonna let someone else, you know, run with this, and you go like, "Ooh, is this a good idea?" And then you get to meet them and you get to know them, and then you're really just going down this together. And I think like creatively, it's just really awesome to be able to trust someone with Borderlands. It's really great.
Thank you, James. Thank you, Joel. Now, when can we expect Borderlands the pre-sequel out?
So Borderlands the pre-sequel is coming out in Australia on October 16th. It's coming out in North America on October 14th, and everywhere else in the world is coming out October 17th.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers.
Baby, I've got a plan for you. It's something you can do alone or do with friends too. It involves a pod of wizards and a goblin or two. But if you're open-minded, then this is for you. And don't forget the most handsome non-vampire singer you've ever encountered. Magic-a-doo, magic-a-doo. Spellcasting for red and humor for blue. With working netcode and more stuff to do. Killing friends is better in Magic-a-doo. Magic-a-doo, Magic-a-doo. For PlayStation 4 and the PC too. You thought it was over? How silly of you! Tell all your friends about Magic-a-doo.
Magic-a-doo. Magic-a-doo. It's catchy. It's catchy.
I must admit, I'm going to be singing that on the drive home for sure. And even though I never really played the first Magicka game, this trailer and the previous reveal trailer for Magicka 2 that was released at E3, it has me intrigued.
Yeah, it's a good bit of like promotional material. I think people that really got into the first game, I myself didn't play a lot either, but it does look like a fun game regardless of the hilarious song that's put over it.
But that sort of just raises this sort of expectation that the game will be karaoke. And it's going to disappoint severely. The only game that has succeeded being karaoke is SingStar and Daytona USA for the Xbox 360 that had the karaoke mode that allowed you to sing the Daytona Let's Go Away
Rolling Stone.
Exactly.
No, if they added karaoke to the game, I would not play the karaoke section because karaoke would make it worse. No.
Okay,
can't have that in the game.
Okay, so what games are in sore need of karaoke mode then? Portal, obviously.
Yeah. GTA would be good.
Yeah.
GTA karaoke, I could be down for that.
What? Just 5 points for just joining along to the radio station or something like that?
Yeah, pretty much. It'll work. It'll work.
I don't know, maybe what's it called? The Last of Us. That's a game sorely within a need of a nice cheery karaoke mode for a nice cheery video game.
Hey guys, it's Jordan here with Tim for a review on The Sims 4, the latest from EA Games and Maxis. We've got two big fans of The Sims here. We've played all the other ones before, so kind of know how it goes down with The Sims.
Yep, we've been building our little guys in their little ghetto homes, building them up with their careers and has seen their aspirations come true for quite some time. But this one, the main focus on The Sims 4, to differ from the other ones, is their new emotion engine. So all the Sims have their aspirations, their traits, so they might get positives and negatives from doing certain activities or being around certain people. And it does make for some very interesting situations.
That's right, they've called them moodlets this time around, and another new mechanic they've added into the game as well is a much more advanced form of multitasking. Now, multitasking is something that's always been in The Sims, but it was always in a fairly basic form where they could only really do pre-programmed activities, like if they were eating together, they could talk, but not much else. This time around, they've blown that up with 2 Sims in a room doing 2 completely different things, one on the computer, one playing TV or something. They can converse at the same time together. They can do all sorts of different things. So it works really well if you've played a lot of The Sims, and if you're down into like microtasking everything together and managing everything, it's a great new addition. But when we're playing The Sims and we're pretty familiar with the gameplay, I think something we look for in a new title is the content itself.
Yeah, definitely. And it does feel like The Sims 4 is the starter edition for a free-to-play game with hat DLC to come. So a lot of the things that were staples in previous games, some of it was added as expansions later on, but there's some really cool things that I feel are missing.
Yes, it's a bit disappointing. We know The Sims are notorious for DLC, but usually we've always got at least a solid base game we can go out the gate with and add on to more quirky things on the end, like pets and vacations and things. This time around, it's very disappointing if you've played all of the games to get into 4 to find that there's base things that are just simply missing from the game. Things like pools and things like a basic dishwasher, which have been in the game since Sims 1. There's just no form of dishwasher in the game whatsoever anymore. Like, why?
Yeah.
It's crazy. So what else is there different or new
Like,
in The Sims?
the ability to add rooms that have been pre-made is pretty cool, as well as make your own content, make your own house, and then upload it to like the Sims hub, and Maxis will even favorite certain things and say, oh, this house is really cool, you should download it and try it out. But it's going to be interesting to see when like the DLC and the expansions come, if it's going to be, well, this house has this certain DLC, so you should buy this DLC. But I think at its core, The Sims is still the same. Has some new interesting careers like esports. You can make your little
all the humour is there.
Yeah.
There's a lot of quirkiness there. There's a lot of fun to have. Like my Sims is a esports professional gamer, but really, like, we know what The Sims does. It's honestly, it's just the lack of content that comes to mind. They've added in these new mechanics. As you said, the online sharing is really cool. So there are some new and interesting things there, but personally, the lack of content and things they've taken away from me just left me a bit disappointed.
Now, the best thing I've seen come out of The Sims 4 is someone made an analogue of Breaking Bad in The Sims 10.
Of course they did.
So he was a criminal mastermind walking around in his white jocks and trying to romance his wife from the series. That was fantastic.
I'm sure that story can only end well for all involved.
Yeah, and that's the thing about The Sims. Like, you get these little stories out of the game, and just going back to like The Sims 1 and stuff, you lock people in a room, delete all the toilets, all the food, and just see what happens.
I remember playing Sims 1 and just spending hours and hours and hours just trying to build a successful person in The Sims. Yeah. That's my story.
Also, it's been a big week for news because Microsoft just purchased Mojang?
Yeah, for about 2.7 billion Australian dollars. That's a lot of money.
Yep.
And with that, Notch has decided to leave the company as well.
So do we see this happening like Rare, where they don't do anything at Microsoft, or it's
I'm sure they learned their lesson, and they'll just let Mojang be Mojang in its corner and just continue to produce whatever it needs to and continue to make all the money in the world, it seems.
Will it flop like when Draw Something got bought out? Because it always seems to have like a popularity drop when something gets bought out. Minecraft Games for Windows Live Edition. Everyone's looking forward to that.
Oh, goodness
gracious. That's going to be fantastic.
But we might as well, in the meantime, look forward to next week's edition of New Game Plus, right?
Yes, because we have a big review next week. It's Destiny. Everyone's very keen for that. And certainly a lot of the crew have been playing it. So we'll
very much so.
Get everyone's opinions next week.
Yep, and by the time you're watching this, the Tokyo Game Show would have just finished. So we'll have our first pieces of video from there. Interviews, previews, all sorts of good Japanese fun.
Yep, so look forward to that. But in the meantime, you should visit our website, www.newgameplus.tv.
Like us on Facebook at New Game Plus TV.
follow our Twitter and Instagram at New Game Plus TV.
Or follow us on Twitch, also at New Game Plus TV.
Thank you, Donald, for joining me.
Thank you, Tim.
We'll see you guys next week.